No, not pass out, but like it's like I do the thing, and then afterwards I'm like, oh, what even happened?
No, totally. That's normal. That's what I do. Not when I'm moderating, though. I promise I'll be there. You're welcome. No, you're the
See y'all on the other side.
All right, sounds good. I've never. Gotcha. It's like bathroom? Are we all going to the bathroom together? Okay. No, I love it.
My dad's talking to Kosh. When I'm done, I'll be like, thank you, and then you come up.
Okay, perfect. And you, when it gets to like 8, okay. Yeah, when it gets to 8, yeah. And then someone will enter some. Okay, gotcha.
I might ask questions of the audience while we're doing it. Yeah. So Zora, whoever can give the mic. Cool.
Perfect. All right. Thank you.
No, I was gonna give you a pad. No, we're good.
I don't wear white very often, and I was like, this is
Everyone's having a party over
I
here.
know. It's about your dad.
That's my dad, that's my brother. He's the only one that looks like me. The others are like yellow. See the one with the locks? That's my younger brother.
Wow. I'm so excited. It's so cool. I love this.
Well, this is awesome. What an amazing crowd you are already, I can tell. Good evening. My name is Melanie. I know a lot of you already. I'm the Senior Director of Public Programming here at the Center for Fiction. Are any of you joining us for the first time this evening? Oh my goodness, amazing. Well, you are so welcome. The Center for Fiction is a 200-year-old cultural nonprofit whose mission is to encourage people to read and value fiction and to support and celebrate its creation and enjoyment. And we do this through public events like this one, reading groups and writing workshops, all offering vibrant, accessible, and inclusive programs that welcome a wide community to experience the joy of story. Our Kids Read program offers immersive reading experiences for children, and we support early career writers with our first novel prize and our Emerging Writers Fellowship. Visit our site, sign up for our mailing list, and then follow us on social media. And to support our work creating a home for readers and writers, please consider becoming a member so you're tuned in to all of our activities. Just a shout out for another event that's coming up that you might find interesting. It's coming up very soon on Wednesday with Nana Brew Hammond, author of Blue and Powder Necklace. She's joining us to discuss her first novel for adults, My Parents' Marriage, which explores identity, patriarchy, and community in Ghana and the United States. So come show the love for another great writer. For tonight, some important logistics. After the talk, and maybe partly during the talk, we will have an audience Q&A, so be on your toes. If you're here in the room, raise your hand, and one of our fabulous interns will bring a microphone to you. That's so that the people who are watching on the live stream can hear you as well. And for those of you who are on the live stream, first of all, hi. Please add your questions to the chat at any time, and we'll read those before we break for the signing line. Mateo was kind enough to pre-sign many stacks of books, but he'll be doing a personalization line after the event, just on the other side of this wall. So after the event, I'll come up and tell you how to do that. But enough. Let's get down to business, shall we? We're here to celebrate Mateo Askaripour's second novel, The Great Hemisphere. As you all know, Mateo captured a lot of attention with his first novel, Black Buck, which hit the New York Times bestsellers list and he became a National Book Foundation 5 under 35 honoree. His work aims to empower people of color to seize opportunities for advancement no matter the obstacle. He is joined tonight by the fabulous author of The Other Black Girl, Zakiya Dalila Harris. Please welcome them to the stage.
Wow. Thank you so much to the Center for Fiction for having me. When Black Buck came out, there was no tour. It was all virtual. It was the same thing with Zakiya's book, The Other Black Girl, and so many other authors, some of whom are here today. We didn't do any tours. We did some events here and there, but there was nothing like this. So this is really the first time for me to be in community, launching a book with so many people that I love, so many people that I'm lucky to call friends, so many people that we might become friends by the end of the night, who knows? Or you might not be feeling what I do when you say, that's not my friend anymore, that's cool. So, you know me. I asked the Center for Fiction if we could do something a little bit special in the beginning. I'm not going to be reading from the book, even though we're going to talk about it a lot. Some of you will buy it. Some of you will read it. And you can let me know what you think afterwards, unless you hated it. But I would like to read something that I wrote. I don't want to call it, who was that, Mo? You're the one, actually, this is why I'm not calling it a poem, because Mo Brown is here. Give it up for Mo. This was the MC, and then to be able to know her as a beautiful human, a beautiful person, and of course, an incredible author, writer, poet. Also, she's incredibly good at running cards. Like when she plays cards, I saw her the other day. It's a blessing, right? So because we have people like Mo, maybe Jive Poetic is also here, Frederick Joseph, people, Joel Leone, people that really do the thing in terms of poetry, I'm just gonna call this a song. And I'm not gonna sing. And this, what I'm about to read, reflects the themes that are inherent in this book, themes that are inherent to my life, and themes that have driven me to even be here before you all today. So let's get into it. Question: who here has ever felt invisible? I'm not speaking in the metaphor, I mean in the literal, where you gotta touch your head, chest, even your ass and wrist, just to make sure you're still here, that you actually exist. When it feels like someone doesn't see but sees right through you, bypassing skin, hair, and organs as if they're doing voodoo. Who has ever walked into a room and felt like a fly on the wall? People having conversations like you're not there at all. Always rich folks eat. All the men outside selling shit in the street. Mothers taking care of other mothers' kids. Fathers from abroad mopping up floor after floor of piss. I see you, I see you, I see you. I swear I see you. They don't want us to be equals. They don't view us as people. And when I say they, I really just mean anyone in power who plays with our lives every second of every hour, who lacks the vision to see you and me as human, same ones who look at Palestine and turn it to ruins. I remember being 14 in my room all alone, empty, locked into a dark and dangerous zone. Told my mom I can't wait, yeah, one day I'm gonna go. She asked, where, son? I said, there's only one way to know. I said, I'm tired of playing with God. I just want some control. Been aware of a ticking clock since I was like 5 years old. Behold. And please bear witness. She got scared, shook, brought me to a therapist. That shit didn't work. I walked out the office pissed, started wielding pain like a sword, Arya Stark type list. I was dying to strive. I was striving to die. Couldn't see myself for years, got addicted to drive. Growing up, my parents were tired but never claimed to be done. Imagine the intensity, staring at the eyes of 5 sons. The world wants us to disappear as if we didn't exist, like, yo. But I won't give into that shit because I got a bro, and a bro. Equanimity, balance through all the highs and the lows. In my 30s and 5 foot something, but I swear I got room to grow. Damn, I don't know what to say to make you understand that you're not a bunch of false narratives, but part of a bigger plan. I see you, I swear I see you, I see you. Not products of a poor nation, but beautiful, breathing people. I think it's time for another American revolution. Yeah, let's call it a sequel. They put us in a box, man, they put us in a cage. And I know I'm behind every smile is unspeakable. unspeakable rage. I have felt your sadness. I have heard you say please, and I have felt the carpet when you fell to your knees. I can only speak to you like this because I'm just speaking to me. So when I stand here and declare that you really aren't see-through, please know it's only because I truly fully see you. Pivotal, but don't get it twisted, our art's political. And I'm here with this message, page a doctor, urgent and critical. Don't ever think that your lesson, that your life isn't a miracle, that the highest mountains don't form from a bunch of tiny minerals, that the ones who build the prisons aren't the real criminals. I crave an analog world, yeah, I'm tired of the digital. But now I come as a man, begging each and every one of you with my heart in my hand to please stay visible, always stay visible. Thank you. Wow.
Okay, so you put out a whole book and then you wrote that. And
Yeah.
you read that here.
Yeah, no ghostwriters.
That's amazing,
Yeah.
Mateo. First of all, congratulations.
Thank you, Z.
Congratulations. Can we clap for Mateo one more time? Because,
Can we clap for Z?
no.
Can we clap for Z?
Let's clap for us.
Hold on.
No, you
Zakiya,
can't.
hold on. Zakiya, so you know the other black girl, right? Like, it did what it did. It became a TV show. Zakiya and I have been friends and book siblings since 2020. Publishers Marketplace had announced the deal memo saying that the other black girl was being published. I read the description, and I found her email, like a good former sales guy.
That was when I still had it on my website.
And I hit her up out the blue. And I said, wow, it feels like our book siblings, and I would like to know you, congratulations.
Yeah.
And we hopped on a Zoom, and that just started what would become a beautiful relationship where this individual right here, Zakiya, has been incredibly generous in knowledge sharing and sharing things about Hollywood and sharing things about her experience and just being one of many rocks that are here for me today.
Well, thank you. I mean, I could gush on, and I will a little bit. Thank you. Mateo, you have been, there are so many writers here, I know. You have been such a force in the community, and I am just in such admiration of you as an author, because this book is amazing, which we promise we'll get to in a second. But just you as a human being, an individual, the way you show up for people, the way you make people feel visible, turn it back. It's just really wonderful. And I'm so glad that you did reach out, because it's just nice to have a friend in this world.
Yeah.
It can be very writing, again, creatives know, just in general though, any field, it's just nice, especially when the pandemic was so isolating.
Yeah.
And it's so exciting that we're here and we get to actually launch this book in person.
Yes.
So we're gonna go ahead and get started.
Let's do it.
How's that sound? All right.
How's that sound? That sounded like Sound Fair from Black Buck, right?
So this book is, I like to think of it as an everlasting gobstopper of a book.
Okay.
There are a lot of layers.
People die on those. It's just-
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there might be some deaths in this book. We'll see.
Yeah.
But I mean, we have political intrigue. We have, people not being as they seem. I'm trying to dance around the spoilers because there are also so many twists and turns. This is very much dystopian, very much fantasy, but also still feels so grounded in this world. That being said, though, when I was reading the prologue, I remember thinking, this feels like a superhero origin story. And I loved that element. And I'm just curious, can you talk about where that kind of opening came from, where the idea for this novel came from? I'm sure there's, you were talking in your earlier poem song, you were talking about one of the words that stood out, phrases that stood out to me were, I see you. And in Black Buck, your epigraph, or dedication, I believe, was for making people feel seen. I believe, you wanted to make people feel seen. So I see the through line, but I'm curious, how you envisioned this book before you even started writing it.
Oof. I don't want to give you a super long-winded answer, but for me, before Black Buck came out, where's Irv? Irvin Weathersby. Irv, you here?
Here.
Yeah, that's my guy. Irv has a book coming out in January called In Open Contempt, right? And I love my brother and I want to plug his work, but it's not just that. So I remember being on Irv's rooftop during the pandemic. This was probably around 2020. And I said, hey man, I think for Black Buck, we're really going to be going all in on the salesman angle. like people are gonna maybe think that I'm sort of like Buck, and I'm okay with that to a certain extent, even though it ended up being something that was a little bit annoying and frustrating.
And it's hard to steer that. Like, I do. It's hard to, once that train gets on the track, that's what you're doing.
And I know it was the same for you for having worked in publishing, but so what I said is, listen, man, I'm cool with that because this second book, I'm going to show people that I'm not a salesman who had written a book, but I'm a writer who had just happened to write about sales. That was the goal, right?
Exactly.
So back then, I was even ideating on what would become This Great Hemisphere, even though the title went through multiple iterations. But where the story really comes from, I was on the train in 2019. This is a true story, and I'm sitting down, you know, as one sometimes does on the train. And this older man and woman entered, and he turned to her and asked her where she wanted to sit. And then as he's asking her, he turns and he points directly at my stomach, just like this, while he's saying it. And I'm looking around, and I'm like, whoa, what is even happening right now?
Oh my God.
I don't really need to describe them fully, but we can start, you know, filling in the blanks.
Yeah.
And then they came toward me, and I was like, bro, who's about to sit on my lap? Like, this is gonna be weird.
It's another day on the
And if anyone is getting the cops called on them, it's gonna be me. You know what I'm saying? And there was about half a seat, and you know how people sometimes do, they shove themselves into that seat and like elbowed me over. And I went home that night, and I couldn't stop thinking about it. And it wasn't like, I wasn't feeling bad about myself, but I was saying, what happened? Like, why did this dude point at my chest when he saw me? I'm pointing at my little brother right there. What's up? And I started to think, did he really not see me, or did he just not even care? And then, you know, as we do, right, we try to make sure that a narrative doesn't take control of us, so we take control of the narrative. So I began to have these questions. What if there were actually an invisible race of people? How did they become invisible? Were they subjugated? Were they revered? Were they viewed as gods? Were they experimented on? You know, did it turn into X-Men? Like, what happens? So I ideated on that over the course of a couple months, and then the idea started to take shape in the form of a young woman who would become Sweetman, also known as Candace. And I thought about her brother, Shanu, also known as Sweet Smoke. There's a lot of double names in there. I know some people, like, there's a lot, but
I'm gonna ask you about that too.
I said, okay, Shanu's in trouble. Something happened with Shanu. But I just wrote this book, Black Buck, that was heavy on the testosterone, heavy on the male POV, even though this novel also has male POV. But I thought that it would be far more exciting to focus on the ramifications and consequences of this young woman, Sweetman, being abandoned by her brother, whom she loved, and then setting out on this quest of sorts to go and find him. And the challenge that I presented to myself was, how do I make Sweet Smoke also feel like a real character without ever actually being there?
Right. Oh, okay. Well, thank you. I have so much to unpack from that. I mean, I want to get into writing from a female POV because I think that's so brave. It's just very remarkable, and you do it so beautifully, so seamlessly. Sweetman is, I just want to wrap my arms around her and just protect her. But I'm going to get into that in a minute. I just want to go back to the fantasy of it all and kind of the world building. Is that something that you've always wanted to do, like in terms of like going kind of more into that? Because Black Buck, like, we all have read Black Buck, and if you haven't, please go read it, and then read this, and then listen to them all. Like, just do all of it. But that one is very much kind of grounded in our world, right? It stretches into this ridiculous place that's really not ridiculous at all. It's very real.
Yeah, slightly absurd.
And this book also, there are moments where it's like, and I'm hopping around now, I'm flipping the script.
I'm hopping with you, let's do it.
There's a moment where one of the characters is talking to another character about the concept of insurance. And this is, mind you, 500 years, most of this book is set 500 years in the future, and they're talking about the concept of health insurance. And he's explaining health insurance to this person, and he's like, that's ridiculous. Like, that's a crazy concept. Like, why would a place endanger their people this way with this system? And so this ridiculousness of it all, like, I feel like there is that through line between both of just like the systems in place. And I guess I'm curious, like, have you always wanted to sort of explore through the lens of fantasy, and you felt like you had to kind of stay in this world, or I don't know, does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense.
I'm curious just about genre for you.
The part about the health insurance, this book allowed me to, from the perspective of these characters, cast a backward glance on how backward we live today in so many ways, right? I'm not a cynic. I'm not a pessimist. People who know me closely know that I think that there's a lot more beauty in this world than there is negativity. However, there's a lot of things today that just don't make any sense. Health insurance, in my perhaps radical opinion, being one of them, right? People have to pay into these, whether private or public corporations, in order to make sure that when they're ill, that they become better. And those who can't pay are then neglected and die when they have as much to offer our world as anyone else. So this novel allowed me to examine some of what's going on in playful ways and absurd ways and very serious ways. But to answer your question about fantasy, no. I mean, I only started seriously writing in 2016, right? And this just came from, again, that experience, and then opening up a notes app in the app that I use, Evernote, and then jotting down notes and notes and notes and notes and notes and trying to make sense of what had happened, and then eventually enjoying creating this world. And whenever I write a note and I keep at it for a series of months, I know that that's probably a novel that could sustain, or that I have enough stamina to sustain over the course of a couple of years, or however long it's going to take to write it, edit it, promote it, because I was writing this book back in 2020.
Right.
That was 4 years ago.
Right.
But I try not to limit myself in one genre. I try to write whatever I want. Someone who I absolutely revere is like Colson Whitehead, right? And Colson Whitehead writes whatever he wants because he can, and because he's a master. And I aspire, like him, Jesmyn Ward, and all of these incredible individuals, to just write what I want and hopefully get it out in the way that I want to.
Yeah. And as a ex-publishing person, did you feel like you got any pushback or any kind of from your team? I mean, you don't have to get into the specifics,
no, let's get into it. Yeah.
Did you feel,
Hello, where you at?
We like to talk about, I love to talk about the juice behind the scenes, but because again, lots of writers in this room.
We're gonna get into it. Yeah.
You're seen as being on a track, right?
Sure.
Of this is your thing. When you're in this, and Black writers, unfortunately, we get put into these boxes of oh, well, you're gonna just write about race, not just, but you're gonna be put into this genre label. And I'm curious, were there people around you who were don't do that, or were there voices in your head where you were man, I'm halfway into this book, what did I get myself into?
Oh man.
I'm just curious for other writers and myself.
We can go in so many different directions with this.
Yeah.
So my oldest brother Darius is here, and he probably doesn't remember this, but years ago I said, hey man, I'm gonna write a book about invisible people. And he said, little word. He said, your career's done. He was like, why? What? Why would you do that? And I said, because I feel like it. And he's like, good luck. So that was one thing, right? And without going too deep into the business of it all, my previous publisher, Houghton Mifflin Harcourt, HMH, right? They had bought this book before Black Book came out. Not knowing what it was, due to the generosity and love of people like Pilar Garcia Brown, my editor extraordinaire, a lot of other people that were at HMH at the time. Then, not to put everyone's business out, but it's public, right? Pilar left, and she went to Dutton. And I said, whoa, I'm going to Dutton too.
Yeah.
So that Dutton had to buy this book sight unseen. And it was a little nerve-wracking because I never want to sell anything that people don't know what they're buying.
Yeah.
And it was really wild for me because I said, I could be writing about a lot of crazy things, but at no point was Pilar what are you writing? What are you doing? She gave me a year after giving her a paragraph about what the book was about to just go and do my thing. And I was so nervous because I had to rewrite the entire book because, I thought, let me just write a book about invisible people. I didn't understand how hard it was. This book was 10 times harder than Black Bug.
Okay, yeah. I have did you have diagrams? Because there are so many... I'm just skipping around because I want to get back to Sweetman. I'm so curious about the formation of that character, but so there's a really fun post on your Instagram where you're talking to the producers of the audiobook and saying giving them pronunciations, I think, for the names. And you say them with such a confidence, and as someone who's never really been a fantasy writer in my adult life anyway, I'm curious, like, what was that like? Like, how did you come up with, maybe this is a dumb question, but how did you come up with the language, the words, the slang? Like, it feels so grounded and natural.
Yeah.
And I mean, for you to say that you just started writing seriously in 2016, I'm like, what? That's amazing. So like, I'm just curious, like, about the craft of it all, like how you really sat down and stuck with that confidence of like, this is what I'm doing, and sticking with it, you know?
No, definitely. There's some people that I used to work at Grovo with here. That was the name of the startup. What's up, Brad? And some other people right there. Conventi? Is that Conventi? Oh my God. If you want to talk about the real, like, the story behind Black Buck, go ask one of these two guys.
Ooh, okay, that's good to
Conventi
know.
back there. So, yeah, to answer your question, right, I had to ask myself what gives texture to our reality. Ever since I was 5, this is gonna sound super like wild, right? But I'm being honest. You know, I brought up that line, you know, I've been hearing about a ticking clock since the age of 5 because my mom was here. My mom was here somewhere. Yeah, what's up, Mom? I remember being like a 5 or 4 and I'm like, wait, what? We die? And she's like, yes, son, we die. And I said, what? And
So lying.
I said, what happens after? And then she's like, we go to heaven. And I said, who gets to heaven? All the good people. Wait, but what? What happens if they're not good? What happens if they're kids? X, Y, Z, right? And my mom would be like, go to sleep. Like, what are you, what are you asking all these questions for? It's called faith. Have faith, right? And right, some of that resonated, and some of it. I used to just find myself when I was a kid, just like staring off into space, really staring at my hand. That's what I would do. It was strange. I'd be in my backyard staring at my hand, and I would disassociate a little bit, where I would feel the texture of this reality like waving in a bit.
Yeah.
So I asked myself in my younger years a lot, what constitutes reality? What's the texture of reality from a dream? And when I thought about it more concretely, what are the things that give our lives depth and meaning and allow us to relate in a meaningful way? Things like idioms. So I had to come up with idioms for this book. Language that sounds credible, right? We're not here like, even though if you've heard tongues, right? It's sort of like that.
Yeah.
So I had to figure out, okay, these invisible people have their culture stolen from them in a very systematic way. But what was their culture?
Yeah.
Okay, certain types of music, certain types of drumming, things that are very reminiscent to history and things we know, you know, about the African diaspora. What is their language? What does it sound like? I had to build their language.
Yeah.
And I won't give it away, but I built their language using 2 languages from completely different parts of the world. I would Google, for example, right, here's the word for thanks or thank you in Vilongo, Mambonga, right? I had to go and Google, and some people here who speak one of these languages will know where part of it comes from, but I had to go Google, okay, how do I say thank you in this language? I might already know how to say thank you in that language. I can't just smash these words together because it's gonna come out like Mumi Mama, right? But if I join them in certain ways, Mambonga sounds like a real word.
Yeah.
It's not a real word, I made it up. So I was looking for ways to give texture to this reality to where it would feel real. And when you read this book, you'll say, oh, that sounds a little familiar, whether it's a historical anecdote or the fact that in Forest 26, where Sweetmint lives, and all locations where the invisible live in the Northwestern Hemisphere, there are patch marts, right? Where people can go and get intoxicating patches, but they intoxicate to the point that they won't kill you.
I love that.
That sounds very familiar to some of our neighborhoods and communities, right? There were things that I wanted to defamiliarize on purpose. I wanted to make them feel fresh and exciting, like a train ride.
Yeah.
But then there were things that I spared nuance. And some people won't like that, and some people will.
Yeah. I mean, there were a few times, and I wish I didn't write that. I didn't tick that one, even though I ticked so many things. But there was this one specific idiom. I can't remember, but I remember reading it on the plane and saying to my husband, "Have you heard this before?" And he was like, "No." And I was like, "This is
Where the sun doesn't like ugly?
something about roughness." It was like related to kind of revolution and the idea of how things can be. Anyway, well, I'll find it and I'll let you know. But I love that you said that though, where it's like really just so much of writing is experiencing the world at its fullest, or however, whatever full means to you. And so it's really cool to think of you sitting kind of in this room and disassociating. Like, I think that's, meditation can be so helpful. And anyway, that's a whole other conversation. But I do want to get into Sweet Mint finally, because when I first moved past the prologue and got to the first chapter, I was like, oh shoot, Mateo's writing from a female POV, which I wasn't. I'd read the back, I'd heard you talk about the book, but really just jumped in and didn't know. So I'm just curious, what was that like? Like, who did you? I say consult, but I don't mean actually consult. I mean, like, who are you pulling on? Whether people in your life or people, writers. Obviously, I mean, I was getting N.K. Jemisin vibes. I was getting Octavia Butler vibes. But I'm curious, like, who did you pull from for that? And were you nervous about it at all?
I wasn't nervous, but I was intentional.
Yeah.
And I was very okay with getting it wrong and being told that I'd gotten it wrong. That's one of my brothers showing in late. He's the only one out of us that's 6 foot. I got 4 brothers. These are tall ones. He's also the late one. What's up?
I love this.
So.
It's all good. It's all good.
So essentially, I was okay with getting it wrong. Like, I'm okay with being wrong. I'm not going to fight anyone, especially someone that, there's no such thing as a literally invisible person, right? But anyone that hews closely to an identity, right? Like, why would I push back? Why would I try to defend where I'm coming from? I'm looking to have a conversation, not a confrontation in this regard, right? So with Sweet Mint, I knew that if I was extremely off the mark, Pilar would have my back. My former agent, Tina, would have my back. My current film and TV agent, Anna, would have my back. There were so many people that would have my back and would not be afraid to say, this is toxic and this is completely wrong, and you're showing really that you're a man writing this. And fortunately, there wasn't really a lot of that.
I'm surprised.
But I had to ask myself, what is it like to be invisible in this world?
Yeah.
And what is it like to be an invisible woman in this world?
Yeah.
How does the fact that Sweet Mint is a woman differ from one of her potential love interests, Darksap, right?
I love that story.
Darksap's the man, right? How does Darksap move through the world in ways that are far less restrictive than Sweet Mint? How, when she moves into the world of the DPs, the dominant population, people who have visible skin, is she treated in the way that an invisible man wouldn't be treated? And we see this conflict play out again, and again, especially in this world that is so disrespectful and neglectful to women, but especially invisible women.
Yeah.
And there are aspects of this novel, there are scenes that are harrowing.
Yes.
They were hard to write. They're a little bit hard to read. But again, that's when I was relying on Pilar, because Pilar has a strong stomach for a lot. And she would tell me at any point in time, pull it back a little bit. There was one scene that was already sort of brutal. And then she said, yeah, let's just cut this part. And then I wrote in the comments, too much? She said, too much, we just don't need it.
Yeah.
And that was it.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I mean, I think there are a few, I remember the scenes very vividly, very anxiety-inducing and triggering, even though I'm not invisible, obviously.
Yeah. We can go invisible at any time.
Yeah.
Somebody saw the video. Yeah.
Yes, I love that. If you're not following him on Instagram, please do. His Instagram is a delight. But yeah, no, you really capture that fear so vividly, and it's just, I mean, again, I applaud you for venturing into that world and into that character, because again, she really is such a wonderful character, and I hope we see more of her at some point in the future, because this book ends in a way that leaves much open, I think. But
Z, can I ask you a question?
Yeah, I guess so.
During the tougher moments of the novel, without any spoilers, what were you thinking? What were you feeling?
So worried. So worried and sad for her, because, I mean, I also want to comment a little bit on the way that you reveal really what happened, like how Sweetmint came to be where she is, and what's happening in the book, and her and her brother's relationship, because I think there was an earlier scene. I'm also trying not to spoil, but an earlier scene where we've kind of sort of just met her. Like she's on her first, like it's when she's going to meet Kroger to and I really didn't know as much about her as, of course, I would learn later on, but I just felt so frightened for her. Like she was a little sister. She felt like family. And that part of it was even more heightened as we have these other perspectives, right? So we have her character point of view. We have a few DP point of views. We have Jolis. We have Kurtz. Kurtz. Yeah, we have Kurtz. And we see kind of all of these conversations happening when she's not in the room, which I love. Like, I love that structure of, it kind of reminded me, Ender's Game is maybe a weird throwback, but like, even just like, I was watching Enemy of the State on the plane. I read a lot of this while I was traveling, and which is highly recommend for all of your vacations. But that whole idea of reading something and knowing a little bit of what's going on, but not really sure whose alliances are falling with who. And so that also added to my heightened worry for her. And I think that was such a smart way of structuring it, which actually goes into another question I have, which is the structure of this book, because as I mentioned earlier, there are so many twists and turns that you pull off magnificently. I thought I knew, and then I was like, darn it, he got me. And I'm curious, how the structure came about. Were you? I know you said Sweetmint was kind of where it started for you, but I'm curious, how you decided to bring in the other voices, and if it was always the structure, and also if you knew how it was going to end, because I'm always fascinated by that too.
Yeah, I knew how it was going to end, just like Black Buck. I didn't know a lot going into the book, but I knew how it was going to end. And to answer a question that you had earlier, did I diagram things? No. But after, in a way, I didn't draw things out, but I wrote things out, because after the second draft, I would pull the thread of a question and 15 would fall out. And I'm like, oh my God, I have to build this world. What am I doing? So then I stopped and I just opened up a document called World Building, and I wrote 7,000 words in 2 or 3 days to answer so many questions about what is, if their healthcare system, what does that look like? What is their technology? What is their state of transportation? What's their government, right? The multiple seats of government. Is there a judiciary? What does that look like? What is the type of flora or fauna where Sweetmint lives? How do I refer to those? Okay, there's Vilongo. Is there another language, a language that the DPs had created that's more of a heritage type of language, right? So I had to answer all of these questions, and I paused and I jotted all of that down, and it helped me with the rest of this. The POVs, there were 4 at first. One of the additional, all right, so there's Sweetmint, right? And then there is Jolis. Stephen Jolis. He's a political upstart who, after the chief executive is murdered, he's trying to be the next chief executive, and he's running on an anti-invisible platform. He's extremely bigoted,
feels
far
very
right.
familiar.
Yeah, all of that. But also in a way where the danger of someone like Jolis is that he's extremely competent, right? What we're seeing today is someone else that's competent, but more in a sloppy way, So then there is Leon Kurtz, and Kurtz is the highest law enforcement officer in the land, and he believes himself to be progressive, to be liberal, but he's also sort of a glorified invisible catcher. You want to call him that. But the dimensionality of Kurtz is that he thinks that he is a good person. And I sort of thought about the Underground Railroad and Ridgeway, right? Who was looking for core and all of those people when I was creating Kurtz. And Kurtz, even the name is a throwback to Kurtz from Heart of Darkness. There's a lot in there, right? But Ten Mace, who is the inventor.
I was saying Tomase in my head. I think I was doing
everyone, tomato, everyone's gonna say it a different way. So Kroger Ten Mace is the biggest inventor in the land. He's the man that helped bring the Northwestern Hemisphere along with the chief executive out of its ashes. And he is who Sweetmint gets an apprenticeship with. I had his POV in there, but then I thought that it would be far more generative of tension if he was more like Geppetto, behind the scenes, pulling all the strings, and you never know where his allegiances lie.
Yeah. And I love that too. Kurtz and Ten
Mace, yeah.
Ten Mace, sorry. I really got to undo the Kamasi.
It's all good. Yeah.
Were fascinating to me because, I mean, just amazingly written, but also felt very real and of this world, and made me think of many other conflicts that are happening right now in this world. And just the nuances and this idea of being like a good person, and what that means for different people, and also the reasons why people do what they do behind the scenes. Like, there are a lot of moments where like families are used as kind of bargaining chips, and like comfort, like your comfort level, like you want to continue to live this lifestyle, you need to play ball.
Or even just using humans as bargaining chips. I mean, literally trafficking, right? Like we saw, homie in Texas was like, oh, you want these people here? Nah, we're gonna send them to New York. It's like, literally, that's a trafficking of humans to send a political point to the ops, you know? Let me ask you a question, Z. Did you know what close third person was when you wrote The Other Black Girl? There's a reason I'm asking.
I mean,
who here knows what close third person is? Raise your hand, like it's okay. Like raise it high. There's some writers in here, right? I didn't know what it was when I was writing this, and my agent saw a little bit. My former agent saw a little bit at the beginning, and she said, "Are you writing in close third person?" I said, "What is that? Like, how does that differ from third person?" And she said, "Yo, go Google." And I said, well, you know I don't have my MFA, Dina. And
I mean, we didn't talk about that in MFA.
I don't know what they talk about in there, right? But like, I had to learn the tense that I was attempting to write in, because the majority of the novel was in close third person, but I didn't know what it was as I was doing it. So that's something else that like shifted from the first draft to the second. And that for me is one of the most exciting parts about this writing journey, is trying to become a better writer, trying to learn more about what it means to write, to be a student forever, and hopefully in the process learn more about myself and this world and what I believe.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that also, well, I want to get back to Sweetman too before because I'm like, oh, okay. Don't want to run out of time, but like, I also want to kind of, because I'm realizing now I'm talking about this book because I've read it and like jumping around, but I do want to kind of, now that we're almost done with this part of the conversation, kind of track Sweetman a little bit so that readers have a sense of like, you know, the shape of the book. And so we have this character, Sweetman, who is moving through this world. She is a young adult.
Yeah,
right?
she's like 24.
Oh, okay, she's 24, sorry.
I think she comes off, I think people think that she's younger than she is, but she's 24.
Yeah, well, I also think, and I wonder, for me, maybe I automatically thought she was a little younger because she is a little more, she's not idealistic. But in this world, she definitely is much more like, trusting in some ways.
Go along, get along.
Yeah, like she starts off with Kroger Tomasi, so she has this apprenticeship you mentioned. And can you talk a little bit also about him, like his role, and also realizing we didn't explain what DPs are? Which is
there's people with visible skin. They're the people that are running things.
Yeah, the dominant population, right? And so he's this inventor, almost Willy Wonka-esque, I feel like. And I love the scene when she gets to his
he has a castle. His
castle. And
there are some writers in here who get invited to castles, by the way, so they know what castles are.
I'd love to know which castles, because
you got to know the right people.
I got to know the right people. But so we move into this space, and so I'm curious, like, when you were writing this novel and kind of imagining, you know, what Sweetman's like, what her flip would be like when she was talking, like moving through this world, like, because oftentimes in stories, of course, we have a character who is moving in one direction, and then we have something happen, and there's a moment, and I'm trying not to give too much away, but I'm curious how you envision that, and I also want to ask you if there's going to be another more of Sweetman, because I think that she is such a compelling character. It's not a spoiler that she is, well, I don't know if it's a spoiler.
That she's what?
That she is going to...
Is she gonna? Oh no.
Okay, so sorry, y'all.
Nah, you all gotta read the book. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll go back to this.
She's like, doesn't her whole leg get blown off? I'm like, don't tell her that. Yeah.
She becomes, okay, so let me go back. I'm curious, like, just when you knew that she was going to have this massive change happen to her, and like whether or not you played with other kind of versions of that in your minds, because I do think it's such a poignant moment that I'm not trying to spoil.
I hear you.
And I'm just curious, like, how that came to you.
Yeah, from draft to draft, as you know, Z, and so many writers in here know, and just people in general, you get to know people more over time.
Yeah.
Right? Draft to draft, you get to understand these characters as real people, to a certain extent, to the point where, at least in my experience, I might have had a line of dialogue in there in a previous draft that they're like, no, I would not say it in this way.
Yeah.
So Sweetman, I got to know her more from draft to draft. And the challenge in writing her was she had to have an arc. She had to believe that in so many ways that many of us did or do or know people that did or do believe that the best way to get ahead is just by shutting up and going along and getting along, right?
Yeah.
Especially because she had an older brother who was extremely radical, and she saw what happened with him. And also because she just doesn't have hate in her heart in the same way. Some of us just don't have hate in our heart in the same way. There are things that I get mad about, enraged about, but I've tried to hold serious grudges, and it like almost just never takes root, right? Even if I wanted to, even if I fertilize it and all of that, it's just like, I'm like, does it really matter? We're all gonna die. Does it really matter? So Sweetman, the challenge was to have her not have this, from like Candide, this Panglossian, everything is great perspective of the world, but she had to believe that hard work trumps all. At the same time, she's an intelligent individual, and I couldn't have her dumb or naive. I didn't want her to present her in that way. But again, she had her brother as this contrast, where she says, okay, this guy went off the rails. I can stay out on the rails. Look, I just got the apprenticeship with one of the most powerful men in the world. Yes, people are being subjected to X, Y, Z, but like if we all just remain on the right path. So what I wanted was a reckoning that I've had, maybe you've had, a lot of us have, which is a gradual, systematic unraveling and unlearning of the way that we perceive the world. And sometimes it is incredibly scary. Sometimes we are delusional and we lie to ourselves. It's much easier to put it on the page, right? But I know in my own life, right, again, I said it in the song / poem / whatever that was, right? Like, I couldn't see myself for a long time as well. But when I stopped lying to myself about the world that we live in, about my perspective, about the things that do or don't resonate with me, it's like you're at the precipice of a cliff. And you're either going to fall or you're going to fly. And that's just what I wanted to happen with Sweetman. But what I wasn't going to allow was to her to disregard the very obvious and blatant transgressions throughout the entirety of the novel. She could be delusional in the beginning, but not by the end.
Yeah. And I think she is such a, again, real character. And I really felt like you landed that balance so smoothly of like this like questioning, but also very much like wide-eyed by the end of the novel. And I think that transformation is so earned and so necessary.
Before we continue, Z,
Yeah.
I just want to try something. Has anyone in here unlearned something that transformed their entire lives? Anyone? Yeah, unlearned. Or had their entire life shaken by something that changed them forever. Does anyone want to share? Anyone want to share? Right here, this man in the front. Can we give him the mic, please?
Oh, yeah.
It's go time, baby.
Right here. Thank you.
I mean, I unlearned my ability to walk, and it changed my whole life, how I see things, what I see, and how people see me.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you. Yeah.
Anyone else? Right there, Karika. Okay, got one more.
Hi, Mateo.
Hi.
I learned this book. I learned that being a woman is not my physical. It's the way my brain works. And that's what you got right with Sweet Man.
Yeah.
It's the way we think.
Yes.
Ooh.
Yes.
Thank you, Karika.
Yes.
Karika, incredible author and all of that. One more for good measure. Anyone? Anyone? There's someone right here. My cousin's right here.
Hi. I unlearned that I can be more than one thing at the same time. Meaning that I have my doctorate, I'm a psychologist, but I also learned that that was a strength, and what got me there was a strength, but it was also my greatest weakness, and I too can have problems just like my patients,
Yes.
and that's okay. And so I had to unlearn that strength is not everything.
Yes.
So,
Wait, I wanna flip that back on you though.
real quick though, I just want to say that's my cousin. That's my cousin Noreen, right? And she taught me math, and it ended up being my worst subject. So, I don't know. You can't blame it all on public education.
I love your honesty. But I was gonna ask you, also love the family love happening in this front row. But I wanted to ask you, and then we're gonna move more to the audience, but what have you unlearned since Black Book? Because I feel like I have been unlearning a lot of things as an author and as a personality. Like, I'm curious, or what have you learned?
No, I know.
What are you doing differently?
Something that I learned after Black Book, and it crystallized after George Floyd was murdered. It's something that I hold near and dear to my soul today, which is you got to focus on the love. And you have to go where the love is, right? With what we do, if we're lucky, we have a bunch of people who read our books. Not everyone is gonna love our books. In fact, some people are going to hate our books, which is, I think, a good thing. But I don't want to focus on the hate. I'm not going to act like it doesn't exist, but I don't want to dwell in hate, right? So I try, like even today, there are things that transpired that weren't, in my mind, driven by love. But to be able to get up here with you and all of these incredible people who took time out of their lives that they're never gonna get back because we're gonna die, right? I had to focus on the love. I had to focus on all of these incredible people and you. So for me, you know, during, after Black Buck, it is focus on the love and go where love lives. What about you?
I think same. I think focus on the community and on the work, like the parts that I love. Like this is work. This is like not. I mean, this isn't work. Like I love this is a great conversation, but like being a writer, being a creative person, being an author is work as fun as it can be.
Sure, it's a job.
It's a job, and so you're not going to love every part of it. And I think it's been for me again following the love, focus, not to cheat and piggyback, but like following the love. And I think that's all about. I mean, we talked a lot about war, or this book has a lot of just conflict, political drama, a lot of terrible people, but there's also a lot of love. And I think that's a great place to end our conversation before we move to Q&A, unless there's something else you wanted to add.
No. Let's do this Q&A.
Thank you, Mateo.
Thank you.
This is wonderful. Everyone, please read this book. I promise. And then read it again and again and listen to it. So thank you. Congrats again. And we'll go into questions. I'm not sure how much time we have, but let's get into it. Awesome. So you
No. You guys do that.
Hi, Mateo.
What's up, brother?
Appreciate you having me. I was thinking about what I was gonna ask, and then I remembered a text message you had sent recently that I wanted to read. It was.
I said, yeah, man, she looks good.
He said he looks good.
Don't look me, he's lying.
No. I had shared with Mateo that I recently moved my desk down to the basement and was telling him that it's changed my relationship to writing, and this is what Mateo said. You have to trust yourself, trust the story, trust that you don't know what's going to happen, but that's okay. Personally, this place, the real and metaphorical basement, is where I learned so much about myself and how I view the world. Nothing like it. My question is, what has going down to the real and metaphorical basement and writing this book, what has it taught you about how you view the world today?
Damn. Maybe, perhaps selfishly, right? I feel most alive and I feel most purposeful when I'm in the act of creation. Whether it be writing or creating in some other aspect. It is what allows me to muffle the ticking of the clock. It allows me to feel as though my time here, aside from being with my lovely family and friends, is being well spent. And it also at least makes me feel in my heart that I'm being of service to people beyond myself. I think that it's also taught me that we have to be intentional as much as we can be about our interactions with other people, about our interactions with ourselves, and the less perhaps that we judge other people and judge ourselves, the more beauty that we can create and reap and sow in this world. I didn't know you were gonna read my text message, brother. Now I have to get them edited by Pilar before I text them. But thank you.
NDAs.
Yeah, but thank you.
Nice. That's a great question.
This goes back to one of the earlier questions around Black Buck. How much do you weigh being a Black writer, right, when you're just writing? And seeing American fiction obviously kind of deals and tackles with this, but how much, and this is not just about this book in your career, how much is being a Black writer in quotation marks, how much does that influence your writing?
I mean, everything.
Great question.
It's the perspective, it's the worldview, right? You can't, there are some glasses that you can just take off, right? I think, though, with Black Buck, it was driven more from a place of F this industry, F a lot of aspects of how people wanted, or I felt like maybe I had to, it might have all been made up, right? That I had to shrink in order to get in because I wanted to get in so badly. I wanted to be up here so badly. There are people here in this audience, right? Nafisa, Thompson Spires. I don't know if Porachista is here. There are people, right? I said, what's up? There's, right, Mo Brown. There are people whose events I used to attend and try to just soak as much inspiration from them as possible because I revere them as people and also as writers. So I wanted to get in super badly. When it didn't work with the first manuscript, right, I said, all right, let's try it again. Second manuscript didn't work, especially when I tried to contort it in a way that I thought editors and agents wanted. At that time, November 2017, I said, I just need to write whatever I want in the way that I want. And I think that I was looking to make a splash. I was looking to let people know what time I was on. And I was looking to be as irreverent, intentionally irreverent as possible. So that's why Black Buck came out in that way. That's why it has that title. That's why I've been joined by so many people who are here today in this incredible writing and Bookstagram community. But also at the same time, it's in you. You know what I'm saying? It's in you, it's not on you. So if you believe that, everything that you write will be a manifestation of that. And that's just the way that I view it. Gerald, AKA JJ, this is my man from college, actually. Zach Basse, he's a Zoe. So yeah, man, that's really the answer. And I remember when I was in France, a woman was there with her son, and she asked this same exact question. And it's like, I couldn't not write any of this if I tried. And I know there's a bunch of dudes that are here that I'm in a group chat with, Robert, Joel, Fred. Yeah. Oh, you can't read this group chat. Frederick, Joseph, right? I don't know if DeMarcus is here, if Tariq is here, Tariq is here, right? But we often have conversations about how we even define the word black and all of that. And while I sometimes don't participate in some conversations, right, my perspective is that whatever you are is going to manifest in whatever you do, despite whatever you call it. Yeah. Thanks for the question, man. Maybe we have time for one or two more.
You had your hand up first.
Oh, no, go ahead,
No, you
Tito.
please go right ahead.
You sure?
I'll give it a
I'll pass it to you right after. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
And first, I just want to thank you both because you write stories and stories that have also come onto our TV screens that reflect the experiences of people who feel largely invisible. I remember when The Other Black Girl came out, I was kind of angry. I was like, because, when you're exposed to the point of feeling vulnerable. I work in corporate America, and so I'm actually here to ask for advice in the spirit of being seen. And I apologize, this is a very selfish question.
Don't apologize.
Yeah.
I need to ask your advice because at the end of the day, The Other Black Girl and Black Buck are both stories about, if you reduce it down into their most basic components, are people who are having an experience in corporate America.
Yeah.
And as someone who is living the experience of The Other Black Girl and kind of trying not to come to the same conclusions as Black Buck did of trying to just ram his way through, what do I do? How do I cope with this? How do I cope with being in an industry that completely distorts my sense of self, with working in a way that is against my moral compass, especially with the job market looking the way it does? Quitting immediately right now is not an option. 2 years ago, it might have been. It was amazing back then. But right now, that is, y'all see LinkedIn, it is war. It is the trenches. How do I cope? How do I get through this? Just for the time being, though. I will eventually quit, but just in the period of time. In the period of time, I know that is eventually the answer. But while I still have bills to pay, how do you? I know you both had these experiences. So how do I do this?
Could you give us your name, please?
Sinite.
Say it again?
Sinite.
Sinite. Okay. Z, you want to begin?
Yeah, I mean, outside of, first of all, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for voicing that, for being here and asking the question. It's hard for me to say. I preface this by saying I wrote the book and then quit. So I immediately just got out. But ultimately, that was my joy. And so this is so simple, I guess, but finding your island, your peace. I don't know if you work from home or if you commute, because that also makes a difference, I'm sure. But finding your people, if you have any people there, I hope there's at least one person. And if not there, I'm sure there are other people who are in the similar positions that would love to find someone like you and have someone to commiserate with. And also just talk about things that are not related to work. So I think the bottom line I would say is finding your joy, whether it's starting out the day, being intentional, of writing out why am I here? Taking away the, how it contradicts your beliefs you mentioned, or how it's it doesn't sit well with you, but if you're supporting someone, you're supporting yourself, at the end of the day, you do have to take care of yourself. Yeah. And so not dismissing that either, I think, is important, because we all have a bottom line, and also we all have to live, and this world is hard enough as it is without, putting all of that on yourself. So finding your joy and just remembering that this is only temporary. I hope. Get out.
Literally. I mean, Z, you said it incredibly. I guess I'll add a couple of things just from my own experience. Right, when I worked at that company that I mentioned, I did things that I wish I hadn't. So what I would say to you is, if you are moving in a way that's in line with your sense of integrity, and that you can sleep at night, that's already one thing to be proud of. 2, I would say, be kind to yourself at every turn. Understand that you don't have to give more of yourself to this corporation than what is required to get this paycheck. And that's very hard to say in this environment, right? Because people who do their job are seen as not doing their job because they're not going above and beyond and working as some sort of indentured servant. But what's most important is that you prioritize and protect your peace. And I think lastly, I would say, to echo Z's sentiment, this is all means to an end. Right? I think something that happens a lot today is this discussion that if you are not making money out of your passion, then you're failing, right? Again, to revert back to the song, not poem, right? I say that growing up, my parents were tired, but they never claimed to be done. Imagine the intensity of staring at the eyes of 5 sons, right? So my parents, they had to do things that they didn't want to do because they come from that generation, like so many parents in here, so many people in here, where you didn't get paid to do what you loved, you got paid because you had to survive. So I would say do what needs to be done to understand that this is just a means to an end, and sometimes it's okay with just having a job.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your vulnerability.
Yeah.
Thank you both. If anyone is hiring, come see me.
Can you stand up real quick so they know who to go to?
Give a little wave.
And real quick, right, we're going to end in a minute, but one thing I want to do is, this is for real, can all of the people who are like agents, editors, marketers, assistants in the publishing industry stand up for a second? For real. Just get up. Yeah, you done?
There's a lot more in the room.
There's more in the room. Get up. So it's important because, right, we're talking about invisibility in this book, and there are so many people whose names you are never going to know that help produce these books. There are people working in the warehouses I've never met. I'm never going to know who they are, but they are as deserving as so many other people in being named, and the acknowledgments and all of that, and I think it's super important. I also want to say, remember all the people who just stood up, because I know some of you have that one good idea for a book, so just go up to them afterwards and pitch them that one idea you have for a book, because I promise they'll love it. My agent, PJ, would love that. I think we're done.
I love it.
No. I had a question.
All right,
One more question.
Thank you.
Who's that, Fred? What's up?
So when I read Black Book, I didn't know you yet.
Yeah.
Phenomenal book. But when I read the current book, the new book that everyone will go purchase tomorrow or tonight, it felt so much more free. And so I read it when I got the advanced copy, and then I got a chance to dive back into it last weekend, actually, and I was going to hit you up, but I just figured I'd do this here. What kind of freedom in your second draft did you get from the success of the first book as a Black writer? Because I think that's important, and we don't talk about that enough. The freedom that you have to write whatever you want to write comes with being an award-winning and New York Times bestselling author. So how did that freedom
And 35 under 5.
And National Book Foundation, 35 under 5 under 35. Yes.
I mean, Fred Joseph, he just came out with the poetry collection, We Alive Beloved. Yeah. Fred, that is a hell of a question to end this on, because we could talk about this for hours. I mean, I'm trying to not end it on like a sour note, but it's like publishing is an industry, which means that there's profit and loss statements, right? There's a bottom line, and it is to a certain extent like rigged, right? Now, not everyone in it is completely complicit in the rigging, right? But as you just said, sometimes earning certain accolades and this, that, and the other afford someone freedom, but I am no more deserving of freedom to create that I want than anyone else that's writing. I'm gonna tell you right now, like straight up, right? A lot of things aligned, a lot of things worked out. Of course, I worked hard, but hard work wasn't the only thing that was at play. So what did that afford me? I mean, I brought it up earlier, right? Like HMH bought the second book, Sight Unseen, before Black Book came out. That put bread in my pocket where I didn't have to worry about paying rent. And I can just go write a 7,000-word world-building document because I didn't have to go to the hellscape that my friend over here is talking about having to work at. But not for long. There are people in here that could hire you.
Get out.
And she better get paid well. But yeah, so I mean, concretely, like, you know what it is, man. That afforded me the freedom where I could breathe a little bit, but I am not comfortable, and this is going to a whole other thing that we could talk about at one of our dinners another time. I am not comfortable with breathing freely. It's just unfortunately not how I was raised. It's not what I viewed, watching again my mom and my dad and do all of these, you know, backbreaking forms of labor, right? So I have to create a certain constriction in my day so that I feel a certain level of pressure, because I can't create out of pure comfort. I just can't, and I don't want to. This is why I wrote this book, because it was hard as hell. I could have written another Black book that just poured out of me. Some of you would have liked it. Some of you would have hated it. Some of you would have said, man, you're funny. Some of you would have said, man, you're wild. Like, that's offensive, you know? But I did not want to do that, because I feel as though I owe a responsibility to myself, to my family, to you all, to those who have come before me, to try to challenge myself when it's due. So, yeah, man, we could talk more. Thank you, Fred.
Is it okay if I ask one more very short, quick question?
Yeah.
Going off of the freedom.
Freedom.
Yeah. What's next? What's next for you? It can be writing. It can be where you're going after this. Like, I'm just curious, like, though, like.
Where am I going after this?
Well, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, but.
Party, but.
Writing-wise, we got a draft of the third one. Like, early draft. PJ's probably like, why are you saying this right now? That's my job. We got a draft of something, third one. And I will say this one is closer to Black Buck. And, but there are ways that I challenge myself with it as well. And then it's just like, you know, trying to stay healthy. My younger brother is getting married in August. I got 4 brothers. None of us are married or anything, but he's gonna be the first. The last shall be first, and the first shall be last, the good book says. And yeah, just trying to be. You know I had it in me, right?
Yes.
Just trying to be as present as possible. Even before we came down here, I said, I feel like I'm floating. I feel like I'm almost not even here, you know?
Yeah.
I'm trying to be present in this moment. I'm trying to not, as Tyler Perry once said, just survive this.
Yeah.
You know? And I'm trying to, you know, continue to give back and have a good time with great people like you.
Aww.
What's next for you?
No, we can end with that.
What's next for you?
What's next for me? I mean, working on my next book.
Yeah.
I'm still working on a draft.
It's called Kinfolk Island.
Kinfolk Island, and what you were saying earlier about comfort and not doing well with freedom. I get that. But I'm figuring it out, and I'm enjoying the journey. And this makes the journey much more fun, because it's just so great to see all of the hard work, just the daring. Again, this is so different from Black Book, but your voice is so pleasant, and I'm very excited. I'm gonna move it back on over to you for the last note of just, I'm excited for you all to read it. Read it, talk about it, tell your friends about it, and listen to it. Yeah. And hopefully we'll watch it one day soon, maybe.
Fingers crossed, we'll see. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you all.